May I have a motion that the closed meeting be closed and that the board certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting to which this certification applies, and only such business matters as were identified in the motion concerning the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt, seconded by Mr. Palmer. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. Now, if you'll join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, I think we have some recognitions. Dr. Matney?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Tracy. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Chairman Ritchie, Vice Chair Bailey, Mr. Nichols, good evening. Ms. Rogers and I have the privilege of sharing any number of august distinctions with you this evening, those that have been earned by our students, our schools, and our community partners. I'd like to begin with the Virginia School Board Association's Business Honor Roll Program honorees. These certificates read as follows. The Mecklenburg County School Board expresses appreciation for your ongoing support of our community's public schools. Your work has aided this community in focusing on the goal of providing the very best public schools we can for every child who attends them, and would like to invite first, representing Microsoft Incorporated, if the good Nathan Ham could come forward. Next, the VSBA Business Honor Roll Award goes to the Clarksville Ruritan Club, and accepting on behalf of the club is Janice Edwards. Yes, ma'am. The next recipient of the VSBA Business Honor Roll Award goes to the YMCA of Clarksville and Chase City, and representing the YMCA is the good Scott Warner. Yes, sir. And y'all would like a picture? Okay. How about another nice round of applause for these invaluable community partners? We also this evening want to recognize 3 of our young people for their standout participation in the recent Virginia School Boards Association 2018 Southern Spring Regional Forum Art Contest. First, we have a certificate of merit that is extended to, and if they are here, would ask them that they come forward. Certificate of merit to Awan Easter. Let's applaud nonetheless. And I don't believe she was able to make it this evening, but we do want to recognize for her participation in the regional art contest, the good Ava Lewis. And I know this delightful young lady is here. She works each day under the tutelage of the master teacher, Ray Cherry, at Parkview Middle School, and that is none other than Dylan Newman. Let's show Dylan once again how much we appreciate her. All right, now buckle up because on behalf of Gary Cyphers, God bless him, he's home this evening ill. I'm going to try to stand in the gap with Tracy and recognize some of our students who have won, again, cardinal distinctions in the area of career and technical education. We will start first with Mecklenburg County students who received and achieved a perfect score of 1,000 on their Microsoft Office Specialist Certification exam. The next two students received perfect scores in both PowerPoint and Word, and we will commence with Sherwood Baskerville. Perfect score in both PowerPoint and Word, Alyssa Berryman. Perfect score on their certification exam in PowerPoint, Zach Curran. Perfect score PowerPoint, Elias Fadul. Perfect score in PowerPoint, Cortland Hawkins. Also a perfect score in PowerPoint, the good Brooklyn Hayes.
And she showed up. She should get extra points.
Perfect score in Word, Ella Patton. Perfection in Word, Anna Siegel. There you go. Congratulations, Miss Mary. Take her picture. And batting 1,000 in Word as well is Ramya Singleton. The next set of students, Proud Dragons from Parkview High School, placed in the regional FBLA competition recently held, as you well know, in Farmville at Longwood University. She won first place in her category of electronic portfolio, that electronic portfolio submission. That is Meredith Clary. She won a gold medal in public speaking. That would be Nyla Costello. Would you like to give a speech, Nyla? Public speaking? Okay, not tonight. Congratulations. Blue ribbon performance in word processing, Zach Curry. Brought home the gold in the category of mock job interview. That would be Henry McKnight. First place for her introduction to business presentation, the good Bethany Walton. Bringing home a silver medal in introduction to financial math, Caitlin Campbell. Second place, cybersecurity. Let me try this. Ed Nielsen Gonzalez. Bringing home a red ribbon in computer problem solving at the regional competition, and that would be Hunter Pulley. Silver medal performance in the category of journalism, Morgan Young. Third place, a bronze medal in broadcast journalism. First, we have Abby Bishop. Abby's teammate, complimented by Riley Grace Turner. I can tell, school is out. Enijah Clark won a bronze medal in Introduction to Business Communication. Bronze medal performance in business communication, Matthew Condecido.
Yes, very good.
Condecido?
Condescending.
Close enough. We're proud of Jaleel Davis for his third place performance in organizational leadership. Bringing home the white ribbon in entrepreneurship, Angel Nunez. And third place, healthcare administration at the regional competition at Longwood, Asia Simmons. And I'm going to ask this dear young lady to come back up once again and be recognized. Again, proud Parkview student. She also placed in the state FBLA competition and will be competing at the national level next month for the third consecutive year. At state, she was fourth. Again, even though she won't give a speech tonight for me, public speaking, Nyla Costello. Once again, Parkview High School, a student placing in the state FCCLA competition, a bronze medal performance in the Chapter Service Award category, and that's Jonaria Thompson. And last but not least, we want to recognize a young lady who placed at the recent State Leadership Conference for the Health Occupation Students of America competition. She won a bronze medal in the category of Human Growth and Development, and that's the good Haley Clary. Once again, how about a nice round of applause for all of our award recipients. Thank you.
All right, the superintendent's report.
Yes, we have a couple of presentations. The first one we're going to have tonight is from the partnership that we've had with the 4-H Club in this area and with Microsoft for the grant that was presented, and Ms. Bowen is here with students to make that presentation. We're very excited about this grant
Thank
because
you.
it's been one we've been watching through the year.
We are too. Thank you all for having us here tonight. When Caitlin and Mackenzie were here in November, we had just gotten started with this grant. So we brought most of our team here tonight to give you a short update on where we are and what we have planned. We have Scott Mickler, Mickler, I'm sorry, every time. Gavi Leah Cherry. Drew Cherry is also a part of our team, but he's a little under the weather tonight, so he's not here. Owen Dean, Kieran Baker, and Michael Blythe.
All right, so what we've done so far. Our first meeting, we got together and we assessed the needs and issues in our county. And the issue we decided to address with this grant was helping youth develop 21st century skills in the workplace. We have done many workshops on leadership and communication. We have done lots of team building among our group, such as going to Holiday Lake and several events in the area. It's my bad. Stage bad.
It's okay, it's dark, we can't see.
We took our group to the 4-H Day at the Capitol, where we learned a lot. We are planning sessions for upcoming programs, and we had Mackenzie and Caitlin go to a DigiGirls event in South Boston.
We received Game Changer training at Virginia Tech. Game Changer is a video game design platform developed by Dr. Shaw. It teaches computational thinking and programming using plain English. In addition to that, it also teaches to write clear instructions, create an original game quickly, debug errors in written programs, and describe the logic behind popular games. If you look at the screen, this is what it would look like if you visit the Game Engineer website. On the box on the left, you would write a program using plain English with complete sentences and proper grammar. This is a sample game that you control a fox trying to eat a rabbit.
Next, we held a Game Engineer workshop at Clarksville Elementary School. We set up a Game Engineer account for each 4th and 5th grade student in the 21st Century Grant program and spent 2 afternoons introducing them to the program. We gave them instruction for how to use the program at home or at the public library so they can keep practicing. It was actually really interesting because the teachers told us that the kids actually did go home and work at the library and create their own games, and they discovered things about the game that we ourselves didn't know or never learned in our training. So it was very cool to see what they learned. And we gave them a questionnaire, and here are a few of the answers. In this 4-H activity, I learned new technology skills. 100% agreed or strongly agreed. This 4-H activity made me want to learn more about technology. 87% agreed or strongly agreed. In this 4-H activity, I learned technology can help me. 73% agreed or strongly agreed. In this 4-H activity, I see how technology can help change my community for the better. 67% agreed or strongly agreed.
Some upcoming events we have is the Game Engineer Teacher Professional Development with Dr. Michael Schall, which is very exciting because he's well known in his field and he's actually the creator of Game Engineer, which is May 23rd at Bluestone High School. Free Tech Changemaker Day Camp at the Advanced Knowledge Center in South Hill, which is June 11th through 14th, and State 4-H Congress, which is June 25th through 28th. Leadership and STEM training, which is just for us.
More upcoming events is the Game Changer class at 4-H camp, led by led by tech change makers, who are also camp counselors, Scott, Leah, and Mackenzie. The Citizenship Washington Focus, and Drew, Gabi, Mr. Cyphers, and Ray Cherry are participating in this. In July 8th to 15th, to include meeting with representatives for Senator Warren, Senator Kane, and Representative Garrett. The year 2 of Tech Change Makers starts in the fall.
We appreciate your support. Are there any questions?
Thank you all very much. We appreciate that and all the hard work that you've done. Great job, and we're looking forward to seeing what comes. I also, I'm glad, I thought maybe he left, but Mr. Ham is again in the back from the other part, and we want to say thank you to Microsoft for the support that Microsoft gave to us. As a matter of being a voted item on tonight, there is the Parkview High School Band overnight field trip to Orlando that you would need to be considering. And I think that that's pretty much self-explanatory. They're looking into the future for your consideration for that. Of course, we've been supporting the bands for those. So that's an item that they will be looking for again, and they are bringing to our attention now for consideration. Then we have some information about some surplus items that Mr. Brian Dalton would like to bring to our attention related to some of our computers. Mr. Dalton?
Yeah, I know. Mr. Nichols. Mr. Nichols.
Yes. B? Yes, I was looking for that one.
That's all right. We'll do it after this.
You
Go
want to
ahead.
continue?
Just, let's get this one and I'll go back.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, Mr. Nichols. Technology has got several devices that are outdated and therefore susceptible to viruses that we need to have removed this summer. Our tech teams are going to be going to the locations and removing these as early as next week. Mrs. Hatcher has already set up with a company out of Richmond to have these items recycled, and we will get some profit out of those, so that's a good thing. As they go through the schools, we'd like for you to declare tonight that all these items be declared surplus ahead of time, and we'll present with a list forthcoming in August or September with serial numbers. But we need to go on and get these items declared surplus so we can get them recycled as they come out of the schools.
Mr. Dalton, are these the Dell devices that have the older processors in them?
Yes, ma'am, the ones that can't be upgraded anymore.
I understand. Okay, I'm with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And my apologies, I printed off my form before the update when we put it in. Item B on the online agenda is another presentation from the Southside Remote Area Medical Program that will be taking place in Greensville County this summer. And we have asked if Mr. and Mrs. Cameron will be able to give a presentation as a way of getting the information out there and hopefully having people participate. So, Mr. Cameron, Ms. Cameron.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Phyllis will be handing out a copy of the PowerPoint to you as I'm getting started. Most of you are familiar with Phyllis and I through our volunteer work with Project Restoration. Tonight we come to you representing Southside Remote Area Medical of Virginia. We got involved in this about a year ago through Project Restoration. So Southside Remote Area Medical of Virginia is an organization that formed about 2 years ago. Remote Area Medical itself has been operational for about 33 years. It's based in Tennessee. They started as an organization that brought medical services, free medical services, to underserved countries around the world. And what they realized was that there were, in our own country, places that needed that. And so for decades, they have been providing across the country free medical clinics, typically to areas that are underserved medically and also to areas that are economically distressed. It may surprise you, but may not, to learn that we in this area, our health statistics, our health rankings, the way that the government, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and other governmental agencies that rank how an area is doing by way of medical outcomes, really. We are comparable in poor outcomes to parts of Appalachia. So that's one of the reasons that there was an organization, a group that organized a couple years ago to try to bring this group here. There we go. There are 10 counties in the area working together to make this happen. You can see the counties listed there, including a couple cities within the area. Phyllis and I are part of the local organizing committee this year. Our responsibilities broadly with the committee are to secure local funding, recruit local volunteers. This includes both medical staff as well, medical volunteers, as well as general volunteers. We provide support for some of the publicity and the community engagement. Also, we've arranged for the facility. It will be held over at Greensville County High School. We also arrange for, but do not pay for, the housing of especially the medical volunteers, and then feeding of the volunteers as well is donated too. How is it that this group, what is it that, or yeah, how is it that this group serves Southside? They provide medical services in 3 major areas. First, general medical care, including internal medicine, women's health, pediatrics. Of interest to the district, I think, and Mr. Nichols in particular, was that they are offering sports physicals, as well as specialty medicine and pharmacy services. Then the 2 primary draws really for the group across the country are dental care, everything from routine cleanings and fillings to extractions. This year I understand we will have an oral surgeon on site as well to do root canals and some of the more advanced procedures. Vision, there's optometry, ophthalmology, glaucoma testing, diabetic eye exams, and someone who has uncorrected vision coming in. There is capacity to make eyeglasses on site with donated frames, and for a normal prescription, the client would actually leave the site with a new pair of eyeglasses. For some of the more advanced prescriptions, there's a mechanism to pick them up some weeks later.
At no cost.
Yes, and this is all done at no cost. We're getting to that in a minute, but at no cost to anyone who shows up. Other items that are also offered are education training. This is unusual among the RAM clinics. We are in Emporia in Southside, the first one in the state of Virginia to offer these type of additional complementary supportive services, including education, including the Narcan, opioid overdose training. An individual who goes through this training, which doesn't take more than an hour perhaps, leaves with a Narcan prescription, donated, free filled, that can be used, as many of you are surely hearing about in the newspapers and in law enforcement and EMS, more and more need for these to be available in the community, almost like the AEDs. Also CPR training, first aid training, nutrition education, some other things, specific support for people who have specific conditions that they may not have been aware of before coming to the clinic. Also general dental care training, and then navigating the healthcare system, which of course is changing all the time. Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing that's important that I forgot to put on the slide was there is also an 8-hour mental health awareness training. This is geared for the general public. So both for, it would be appropriate for staff within the school division who might have this as a specific responsibility, but is generally appropriate for anyone, anyone in the county and certainly or in the public and certainly within the school system.
For any of your staff that takes advantage of this coursework, it has also been suggested that they would be able to take advantage of basic physical all along.
One of the feedbacks that RAM received in their questionnaire was one client simply said, "Come, if you need help, come." And that's the general theme of it. As my wife mentioned, it is a free service from top to bottom. There is no money exchanged or accepted on site. The people who show up, there is no question about their income, there is no question about insurance, and there is no limitation on their residency. If they get there, they will be served. The only question is there are demographic information that is collected, and if there would be follow-up, for example, medical tests that would be run where reports would have to be sent afterwards, they would have an address provided, but it's not for screening in any way. It will be held the fourth weekend in June, the 23rd and 24th. It is first come, first served basis. The parking lot at the high school will open by midnight. Tickets or vouchers will be given out starting at 3 o'clock. The line, instead of forming like a football line would in tents and everything around the stadium or the school, each parking lot is numbered. And each parking space in the parking lot is numbered. And the first car pulls into one, the second one pulls into two at midnight, and at 3 o'clock they start giving out the vouchers. At 6 o'clock the doors open, and at 6:30 the doctors begin seeing patients. And as I mentioned, it's being held at Greensville County High School. And I should mention that the local organizing committee, I told you what our responsibilities were. RAM of Virginia, which is the state level of the national RAM, they provide the logistical support. They bring in many of the medical equipment, dental chairs, and so on, and they provide all the on-site command and control, if you will, the guidance the day of the weekend of the clinic.
Dana and I worked registration last year, which was the first time this event had ever been held. And just to give you an idea of how early you have to get there if you would like services, we had been prepared to have a thrust up until about 10 o'clock, and then registration would slow down until after lunch, and then it would pick back up, and we would trickle through the rest of the day. By 6:30 last year, every single one of our vouchers had been given out, and by 10 o'clock we had everybody that could be seen that day registered.
The limit is essentially controlled by the number of dentists and eye doctors that are there. Last year, I want to say there were about 600 or 700 individuals served. This year, the expectation is, because there are more dentists already registered, that number will probably be closer to about 1,200. Even at that, I will be surprised if it is not maxed out. As far as the value to this area, we do, of course, accept donations. For every $100 that is donated, it allows approximately 7 people to receive an average of $355 of medical services. So in aggregate of almost $2,500, the leverage the local community to the community is about 25 times the financial monetary contribution. So donations make this clinic a possibility. Of course, it takes the volunteers to make it happen. We put in a slide here for both you and the public as where you would go to register. And if my wife didn't give the press a copy of this, you will be getting a copy as well. Contact information, there are the websites for the national organization as well as the state level organization. My wife and I serve as the Mecklenburg contact, and Wendy Wright is the treasurer of the organization. She works primarily with the Chamber of Commerce as well as any number of other volunteer organizations next door in Brunswick County. And you can reach either of us if you have any further questions. And with that, are there any?
You explained when we were discussing it why it's in Greensville County as opposed to another site. I think that's important because, of course, when there are medical services available, and we know that there are immunizations and training and many types of things that are available, dental services that so many of our students need, we want to make sure that they're available to it. But that's a distance, so why in Greensville County?
And it is a distance. Do you want to?
Yes, that's one of my favorite parts because we have received this question a lot of times. And there are 10 counties that came together to bring this organization here. This organization will not come to a community that does not have a foundation. And both Brunswick County nor Mecklenburg County has a foundation. Greensville County has a foundation, and Halifax County has a foundation. Greensville County got the site because of I-95.
And essentially that's driven by they need a reasonable source that they can go for seed money to make a couple significant grants to bring it in. Last year it was both the Greensville Foundation and the OBSE Foundation, which is further to the east. This year the major donors are Greensville Foundation and Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which of course is a joint venture with Dominion.
Any other questions?
General volunteers, what would they do?
Oh, wow. It's incredible. Like I said, Ben and I both come out of education, so I've said a number of times that it's the first time I've ever registered where I wasn't registering professional credentials. And that was very strange, and it almost hurt my feelings. But when I got there and saw what we could and will do, Ben and I worked the computers and registering people last year. From there are runners, there's triage if you have any nursing background. Quite frankly, this year, one of the things that we saw last year that was a need was that clients would not get out of line to eat, and they could be there all day. And so Project Restoration has worked with Feedmore, and Feedmore is bringing a truck in. So our volunteers will actually be doing what we do well, and that's feeding clients. So we will be providing the food for them throughout the day. There are educational sites set up through the library. There is counseling. There's feeding of volunteers. There's just any number of things, Gavin. I mean, no person, regardless of their ability level, would be left out of the loop in this.
They do, I mentioned, make eyeglasses on site. They will train a general public volunteer to run that machine. So there are things that can be done. The other thing I wanted to mention was, it escaped me, I'm sorry.
And Mr. Nichols, you asked about us and our involvement with School Market, just sort of giving you an update. So Bang has some, and this is not an official report. Lauren O'Grady, we have talked with her today, and she will be sending you guys an official report. Our observations from participating in the School Market over in Chase City
The
And in case
Feed
you
More
don't
program.
recognize.
The Feed More program that we've
The
been
Feed
talking
More
about.
Yes,
program,
yes.
yes.
In case you don't recognize the name, Lauren O'Grady, she is the point person at Feedmore, Central Virginia Food Bank based up in Richmond, who is overseeing the school market program for Feedmore and through this region. Some of you, I think, had the chance to meet her up at Chase City over the last couple of months. The community support that we have seen through the spring has been tremendous, both starting at the school itself, businesses stopping by, becoming involved, any number of elected officials, both local and state level elected officials have been there. Of course, we've seen some local Mecklenburg County Food Pantry representatives as well. And what was very interesting to me, I'm sure it happened in previous months, but last Thursday, there were some students involved, helping to unpack food out of boxes and putting it where it needed to go, and they pitched in right with everyone else, and that was fun to see that not only were they there interacting with the teachers and the staff, but they were actually getting involved helping as well. As far as those supporting it, Agricultural Extension has been doing healthy food tastings, specifically using some of the food that was being distributed, perhaps some that might be unfamiliar or people might not have as good an idea of how to use it. There was also age-appropriate book giveaways, which some of your board members were instrumental in both initiating and wrangling books and having a food drive for that. There were games for the children who were there, and there was certainly a lot of positive and casual interaction going on between the families and the staff, which is one of the purposes too, to bring people into the school and see the school as a place where positive interactions can be had, especially for those families who that may not be the rule for them in many cases.
Any questions?
Bane, did you get numbers for that last event at the elementary school? How many people picked up groceries?
The last number that I heard was 91.
Okay.
But that was incredible. The month before, they had hit 83 by the end of the first half hour.
Yeah, it looked like more people last time.
And there wasn't. There was 103 was the final count the month before. But the response, and we have gone over to Halifax County to observe, but the response at Chase City has been absolutely incredible. The number of faculty that has been willing to support that program, y'all have a lot to be thankful for in this.
Thank you.
Lauren will give you specific numbers. The target on the program was about 100 families to be served each month.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, okay. Next, we have your information, and again, we will be voting some and will be explained for the policy updates, and Ms. Peffer is going to be bringing this information to your attention tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Chairperson, board members, and Mr. Nichols. You should all have policy GAA out of the personnel part of the policy manual. There's been a few updates to this. On the first page, there are no changes, but on the second page, you will notice that there's two definitions of overtime compensation and earned accumulated leave. We've been using the term compensatory time incorrectly. That really only applies to any hours over 40. So our employees that work 35 to 40 hours have been earning compensatory time, but we needed to call it something different so it would not get confused with the overtime hours, and we called it earned accumulated leave. And the definitions are at the top paragraph. In the second paragraph, you'll notice that we've changed the maximum accrual of hours to 120, and they can earn 60 earned accumulated leave hours before we have to pay out their accumulated leave or overtime. In the next paragraph, you'll notice that if you earn accumulated leave or overtime leave, they have a certain amount of time they need to use it in a timely manner. And if they do not use up that time in a timely manner, we can force them to take a day off to use up their earned accumulated leave or overtime compensatory time.
At
At the bottom, you'll notice it's just another explanation of earned accumulated leave. They can earn up to 60 hours, and these are hours that they earn between 35 hours and 40 hours. And those are the only changes in the policy. Any questions?
I might just add, for clarification, when we come to action items, the policy update action items are from last month. These items are things you have a month to discuss and will be brought back for action next month. And because there's significant policy updates from the SBA ongoing, we'll probably have more policy for you to consider for the following month. So that's the way the rotation cycle goes on that. But if you have questions about this, you can call in or ask through the month. Thank you very much. Okay, we also have some updates on federal program applications, the titles that you see here, and those responsibilities are between Ms. Rogers and Dr. Matney, and so I'm going to let them bring those to your attention tonight.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Nichols, board members. It is that time of the year again where we present to you our federal program applications. We present them in May for you to have a month to review and to approve in June because they are due to DOE by July the 1st. My responsibility tonight is Title I. That application is basically the same as it has been the last several years with just a couple of minor adjustments that I'll bring to your attention. We were this year able to, we had enough students to register for pre-K at Southwell Elementary, so we will be adding another pre-K classroom that is going to be split funding between VPI and Title I, so you'll see an additional paraprofessional in here being paid from Title I for that pre-K class. We also have a local private school who's now participating with us for Title I, receiving a small chunk of money based on their number of students who meet the poverty index, so that is also in here. But as you review it over the next month, if you have any questions about anything in the application, please don't hesitate to call or email. Any questions tonight?
Thank you.
Following the good lead of Ms. Rogers, the applications respectively, Title II, Title III, Title V remain largely the same. As you know, we're at a little bit of a disadvantage as we have not yet been made cognizant of what the actual allocation will be for the coming year. What you will find on board docs is a proposed draft of what we would submit based on last year's allocation of funds. Title II, most notably, you'll see, will allow us to continue to add the equivalent of 2 full-time equivalents at the elementary level so as to reduce class size, something that we have done historically between the level of 2 and 3. Title III, Title V remain largely the same. And once again, if you have any questions regarding those, be happy to answer them either this evening or in the ensuing 4 weeks.
Questions? Okay. Dr. Matney will also be addressing the changes that need to be considered for the Student Code of Conduct and Attendance. Again, this is an item for you all to look over tonight and within the next month and then be voted on at the next board meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, we submit for your consideration this evening proposed changes to the Code of Student Conduct based on input solicited and secured from our schools. These revisions included in their entirety, of course, in your board docs, include, among others, and I'll highlight just a few if you'd indulge me. Beginning on page 8, you'll see a delineation of the process of treatment of juveniles as adults for certain violations of law. We felt that legal update was important and essential, imperative, in fact, to be included in the coming year 18-19 Code of Conduct. You'll see on page 10 a clarification of the range of consequences for violations of the Code of Conduct. Heretofore, I think they were listed alphabetically. We found that a bit confusing, so we listed them, I think, in a much more user-friendly format, was the recommendation from least severe to more severe. You'll see a thoroughgoing tying of certain student privileges, such as parking, to attendance. And satisfactory attendance in class, as well as a lack of excessive tardiness. As you well know, we're preparing for a new school quality profile that will hold us accountable, a measure of our effectiveness as schools for our attendance rates. So just as we do in the world of work, we in school want to do everything we can to give incentives for better attendance, particularly at the secondary level, and would submit for your consideration over the next 4 weeks, tying certain student privileges like parking to school attendance, satisfactory school attendance. Page 31, there needed to be a clarification on prior written notification by parents for absences that don't fall neatly into the prescribed list of excused absences. We all know that there are those circumstances under the authority of the parent that can be submitted prior to the absence for consideration by the principal, and the principal has the autonomy and the authority to declare them excused. And then on page 36, there is invariably some updates with fashion trends and the like on some things that we would want to add to the dress code, some things that are proving to be distracting and what we feel undermining the learning process. But those are just a few of the highlights. Again, all of the recommendations that we are setting forth are found on board docs. Happy to answer any questions you may have tonight, or again in the intervening 4 weeks. Pardon me?
It's he's referring to the pages at the bottom, not at the top of the screen, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
We'll check on that.
Oh, I
I
got
have
41.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, should be 41, 42 circa.
We'll make sure you get copies.
Either one, I got 40. Yeah, might have to refresh or something.
We'll get you a written copy.
So it's as it's going to be. It doesn't have what was there versus what's there now. So that was my question. Looks like it's.
I have a question.
Sure.
I read Facebook quite a bit, and there was a problem this year about lunches being brought to school, and students wouldn't be allowed to come out to get them. But I see here that just flowers are mentioned. I think if parents are going to have food brought to the school, then the students should not be allowed to leave until their lunchtime to come to the office to get it, because that's interrupting classes all the time. Could something be
Sure.
mentioned to that, or brought back to the principals to see what they think about it?
Sure.
Members of the board, before Dr. Matney sits down, I'd like to bring to your attention, and I know that this is an item that the members of the safety committee are aware of and want to have you considering for a vote to be possibly a part of this next month. Earlier in the year, there was consideration by the board that we allow backpacks back into the schools other than being brought from home. And there was a significant petition from some members of some of the schools to change that policy back to no backpacks, and the safety committee brought that up. If that's going to become another part of the rule, then it's something that would need to be brought into this handbook. And so it needs to be considered for us to look at, I would say, in June. The night that it was brought up, we voted that night, but since then, we've determined we want to have a month for consideration of that. So the safety committee has made that recommendation, and I'd like to bring it to your attention for consideration here, and could be discussed as well. The other piece that was brought into consideration, or as part of the teacher's concern, was again the issue of the cell phones and cell phone usage. Actually, Dr. Matney, if you would address that from the perspective of what we currently have in the book, we believe that the concern is addressed in our policy manual. It just needs to be administered.
Yes, sir. We have left status quo. The verbiage that you all approved for this current school year 17-18 that may have been modified circa October remains in the draft for the coming year. And we have reviewed that. We are of the humble persuasion that, again, the language that's used does make cell phones verboten. That they, once you break the plane of the front door of the school and engaged in learning, either by putting the cell phone away on your person, or as was the case, as I understand it, prior to my arrival here and prior to October, putting it away in a book bag and securing it in your locker was the rule of the day, and it was not to be engaged in or used except under the direction of a teacher if they gave explicit instruction for that. But as we've discussed, there is not an instructional task before a child where they have to have a cell phone. There can be a laptop, a Chromebook, any number of technological devices available to them so that they can have all of the amenities of the internet, everything that technology can afford them. They do not need to access it via the cell phone. So I think we're of the humble persuasion, and we'll certainly want your discerning eye upon it in the next 30 days, that the language that's there, as well as the language on book bags going in the locker, is sufficient for what we would want to do in light of the Safety Committee's recommendation.
But please look carefully at the language that's here and make, recommendations for modifications.
So just for clarity, you're looking at pages 17 for use of cellular telephone by students. And I saw something about lockers. Where's the book bag stuff at?
I've got cell phone page 24. What page is it?
So am I looking at the right document?
Is it the code of conduct?
Code of conduct or student handbook? All right, well, I've not gotten to that.
I'm on the code of conduct.
You're on the code of conduct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There's a reference to book bags on, according to my pagination, page 30. Secondary level book bags, string bags, and gym bags shall be kept in lockers upon arrival to
Okay,
school.
page 30, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So there is that reference there. And help me, Ms. Bailey.
Page 19.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Use of cellular telephones by students. We've extrapolated that to smart watches, which I understand are contingent upon a cell phone to activate. But again, that verbiage is the same vernacular that was adopted by this body last summer for this fall.
Actually, it wasn't page 19.
Certainly.
Oh, it's
Somewhere
on
in there.
page 17, my bad.
But use of cellular telephones by students,
Uh-huh.
I'm with you.
How about the use of a cellular phone during a board meeting? Is that allowed? Just kidding.
I'll defer to the chair.
All right, is
Any
that it for
questions
the
before we
code of
take into
conduct?
consideration through the month, to vote next month at the June meeting? Okay.
I do have secondary handbook.
Yes,
Would
sir.
that help at all? Again, would submit for your consideration some proposed changes as recommended by our schools to the secondary handbook. Again, it's in its entirety on board docs. Let me, if you'd indulge me very quickly, just highlight what we felt to be some of the more salient and notable recommendations. You'll see, beginning on circa page 9, an explicit reference to a updated process for the collection of fees. We heard about that before in the context of lunch and meal fees. As you know, this school division, based on your authorization, underwrites the cost of participation in courses at Southside Virginia Community College for performance of C or better when you perform in satisfactory fashion. Unfortunately, we have a modicum, students who do not meet that goal. They do not perform at a satisfactory level, and then it becomes their financial responsibility incumbent upon them to pay the tuition fees that are set forth by the community college. There are several thousands of dollars that remain on our books that remain uncollected, notwithstanding the good faith efforts of the school division to take every reasonable effort to secure those funds. Due to the good work of Ms. Giammatteo, we have had communication with the Commissioner of the Revenue for the county for a fee, what we feel to be a very modest fee, particularly given the gravity of some of the debt by individuals that is being carried. I think, Paul, it's to the tune of circa $60. We can petition the Commissioner of the Revenue to go to the next level in a stepwise approach, including the garnishment of wages and the like for those who have proven recalcitrant in the payment of fees that they owe the division. So you'll see a specific reference to that. I think we've gone into great detail as necessary within the handbook so that no one misunderstands, again, that if you do not have a satisfactory performance in a course that's being paid for by the division, you have to do your part. If you have less than a C, you owe the tuition. And if, again, it's not secured through the reasonable efforts of the school division, we will call on the Commissioner of the Revenue to assist us in recouping those fees. You'll also see, again, a very explicit declaration of the collection of a nominal $5 fee for enrollment at the high school and the middle school when you are in a career and technical education course to pay for consumables. Some of the other more notable facets, we felt it important to add, although it was not necessary, we felt it important to accentuate the VHSL transfer rule that makes parents and students, it's patently clear to all involved, the impact that that will have on your eligibility if you do not have a corresponding and concomitant change of address for your family. And what that means is 365 days of ineligibility. So we have, as written by the folks on State Farm Boulevard in Charlottesville at VHSL, included that in the secondary handbook for clarity's sake. Some provisos regarding participation in middle school activities such as dances, likened unto what we do at the high school level for participation in prom and the like. Again, as we prepare for the new school quality profile and the accentuation on attendance, tying some student privileges to satisfactory attendance, such as parking, and then again, invariably, just as we did in the Code of Conduct, updating our dress code to include some of the newer fads and newer things that are proving distracting to the learning process. But again, happy to answer any questions you may have this evening or, again, over the next several weeks.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Matney.
Yes, sir.
Other comments that I might want to bring to your attention, I'd like for you to be aware that we recently had Mr. Dalton work with the county sheriff's office at looking at a software that is now come out and has been piloted in Brunswick County that actually is available, will be available in each classroom, either on the teacher's computer or via their cell phone, that in the case of an emergency shooter or something of that nature like we had in Texas yesterday, a simple text could be distributed to all of the county sheriff's offices to know exactly which classroom and exactly which school and how to get there and the state of the affair at this time. I was not able to participate because of other meetings, but I have since talked with representatives from the county sheriff's office. They are very excited about this software and will be pursuing the option of being able to purchase it for our schools, hopefully in the near future. I also want to bring to your attention by a document that has been brought to us that, I'll just have to pass that out. South Hill in particular, but this region in general, has the opportunity to have several, and I mean many families possibly coming to the area to live because of the Foreign Affairs Security Training Center that is being built at Fort Pickett in Blackstone. And it's going to, as you can see on this sheet, it's going to provide hard skills security training to State Department personnel and the foreign affairs community. It will be bringing possibly a couple hundred families into this area seeking homes and places to live and places to send their children. We were represented at a program that actually went to West Virginia where the program is currently in place. Crystal Elmore represented our school division very well. There were, I believe, 6 or 7 members of the contingency from this area that went to that meeting and represented us well. Now they are actually coming in to look at the area on Wednesday of this week and we will be working with them, again, trying to see if we can attract some of those families to the Mecklenburg County area. So we're very pleased to have this opportunity, and hopefully we'll be able to sell the area for persons who would be coming in, families coming in for that service. I'd also like to bring to your attention that we have two members of our staff, Ms. Sturdivant from Parkview Middle School and Ms. Colgate from Chase City Elementary School, that have been selected to participate in a training program with Dr. Ruby Payne's Pathway Out of Poverty. This is a program that has been established for many years, but in the very recent years, it has really focused on issues and how poverty leads to drug abuse, gang violence, and things of that nature. The training actually includes not only educators, but police services and social services. We will be primarily focusing on the educational services, and they have had huge success in several large urban areas on working with persons that live in poverty to keep them from the moving into the other areas and help them build their way out. The urban areas have had success. They're looking now at piloting some programs in rural areas, and so the cost of participating in the training has been covered by those two staff members of ours, so that they can bring that back and they can look at the pilot program in a rural area that's now suffering from some of the same issues. That will be in Minneapolis in June, and we're very pleased to have them participate in that, and look forward to what they bring back to work with us on it. So congratulations to them, and we're excited. And that's my comments for the evening. I know we'll go on to committee, and I may have some input, but that's our comments for the evening.
All right, we'll move on to our committee reports. The Joint Education Capital Improvement Committee.
In
Probably.
Mr. Edwards' absence, I might simply say that, as many people probably have seen in the newspaper, the Joint Education Committee has met with representatives from our board as well as the Board of Supervisors, and we are seeing progress on the study that's being done by the Department of Highways, so that we look forward to, on a timely manner, I don't know what that exactly means at this point, but the steps that need to be taken are being taken. Even as recently as last Friday, there were completed reports that were sent in, so we feel like we are closer to the securing of the property for the project. We are having some conversation at this point about the architect's rendering on what we need for the program. It has been cost estimated, what we have so far, and we feel like there is a need for $113 million, by looking at what the Board of Supervisors had led us to think needed to be included in getting that material there. That was taken into consideration, and at the committee meeting, which Ms. Lundy actually took it back to the board, they determined that they were going to stick with the $100 million offering for us, but that they were looking at working with us on modifications as we continue to look at moving forward. And that's reported in the newspapers, and so I won't go into a lot more detail, but of course, as we have a Joint Education Committee meeting, you know, the questions do come up. So we're continuing on that pathway. On Wednesday of this week, the architects will be back in Mecklenburg County, specifically having conversation with administration and staff members about what has been put in place so far as planning for the career centers and the classrooms and the athletic facilities. And the teachers and administration staff persons will have an opportunity to respond to those plans and talk about things that they see may have been overlooked or ideas that need to be included, and put their first mark on it. There will be other meetings throughout the summer for educators as well as the community and those related and interested in the athletic component. But our goal is that by the time we come back in August, there will be a more formal rendering for staff to look at as well as the community, and that will be presented at the first part of our coming back to school. So we're looking forward to that part of our schedule, working with the new schools. And I don't know if other members of the Joint Education Committee have comments about that they'd like to make, but we did have that meeting.
Yes. Okay, how about the Finance Committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Finance Committee met today at 5 o'clock. We reviewed the bills. We talked about an adjustment in our budget, pending state budget approval and local budget approval. And we'll have recommendations at that action time.
Okay, thank you. The School Safety Committee, anything? All right, the Gifted, Talented, Special Ed, Health and Family Committee.
The government school met May 9th at Nottaway, and I gave Dr. Matney the minutes of the February meeting, the budget that was voted on, and the calendar that was voted on for the upcoming school year for government school. And our next meeting is in July.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Garner. CT, Career Technical Education Committee. Mr. Cyphers isn't here, so there's probably nothing. The Athletics Committee.
Chairman, we have nothing left.
Okay. The Instruction Committee. We did meet today, and we made a recommendation to the Finance Committee, which they accepted and will be just on some budget adjustments and positions. But we will, they accepted that, so that'll come up in our action items. All right, now we are to the public input session of the meeting. Madam Clerk, is there anyone signed up to speak?
Yes. At this time, matters may be publicly brought to the attention of the board and administration. Public comments at board meetings are just one of the many avenues for communication, and the board recognizes and appreciates the importance of input from and communication with the public we represent. The public is invited to sign up to speak. The clerk of the school board will write down your name, contact information, and the topic that you wish to speak about. The public is allowed up to 6 minutes at most meetings to express their views. Please respect that time limitation. It will be enforced. Please understand that it may not be possible to immediately respond to questions. As a reminder, it is inappropriate at a public meeting to make personal attacks, to be defamatory, or to disparage individuals or identifiable groups. Again, we welcome and appreciate your input. Prior to beginning your comment, please state your name to the board. Mr. Kropka?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Nichols, the board. My name is Jesse Kropka, and I'm here to speak about school board reform, but more specifically about special committees and reform that I think is necessary. Before I begin, if applicable by law, I implore all school board members to read the third-party complaint and external investigation filed against me in late November and early December, and it will just give you a better insight onto why I'm here and why I'm speaking. I am not here to pick a fight or start a war. However, I am here to propose 3 new definitions and a few new policies that can help stop unethical actions of a special committee. The first definition that I would like to be added to the school board governance and operations manual is the definition of nepotism. Anti-nepotism is defined in the school board policy as any act of hiring a family member by a school board member or by the superintendent. However, nepotism is the definition, is the practice among those with power and influence of favoring immediate family member or friends. And as you guys know, immediate family is defined as a spouse or any other person who resides in the same household as a school board member or employee and who is dependent of the school board member or the employee. The second definition I'd like to be added is the malfeasance, which is wrongdoing, especially by a public official. The third definition, which is alluded to in the school board governance and operations manual, is the conflict of interest, but it is only alluded to as a Commonwealth or a local governance law. What I would like is a more defined definition, and if you look up the definition in the Commonwealth of Virginia, it states it is prohibited conduct, by the use of a public position to retaliate or threaten to retaliate against any person. And the reason why I have this stated is, I will get to that in a minute, is for some unethical decisions that have made at Bluestone High School specifically. The 3 policies that I would like to see be added is no school board member should be allowed to partake in a committee in which their family member, especially their children, is a direct influence of that party. All committees, as you guys have already done so tonight, should recommend and should submit their minutes to the school board for approval. And after deliberate research, I have found that the school board operations and policy manual that Mecklenburg County has is a carbon copy to most school districts in the Commonwealth of Virginia. However, I am asking that you guys add one code of conduct policy that states, I will refrain from using the board position for personal or partisan gain and avoid any conflict of interest or appearance of impropriety. Now, with all that said, I would like to, and I know that I am not allowed to indict or state any specific names, but I would like to state 4 things that have happened, and they have happened under the name of the Athletic Committee. If I step over bounds by any means, I do apologize. But I would like to say that the Athletic Committee has removed the head boys basketball coach at Bluestone High School. The Athletic Committee has threatened and rumor the removal of the athletic director position at Bluestone High School. The Athletic Committee has threatened and rumored the removal of all 3 softball coaches at Bluestone High School. And it has avoided the chain of command in the school system to hire and remove coaches specifically. In closing, before I end tonight, I'd like to again ask you all to read, if applicable by law, the third-party complaint filed against me. Additionally, if you have any questions or if you'd like to discuss this in a more private manner, I am always willing to meet and share my resources, my information, and my sources to all of this information. But before I leave, I would like to state that Bluestone High School in this coming new school year will be looking for 2 cross-country coaches, 2 football coaches, 2 boys basketball coaches, 3 girls basketball coaches, 2 indoor, 2 outdoor, 3 outdoor track coaches, and 3 baseball positions. All of that circle the athletics committee. I am happy to share, and I'm happy to be here. As a community member and a property owner in Region 2 of Mecklenburg County, I'm hoping that I can continue to serve this community. Unfortunately, I will be leaving Mecklenburg as a teacher, but I hope to rejoin once I believe that Mecklenburg has made some steps for progress and equality for all students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Probably not tonight. Thank you, Mr. Crawford.
Ms. Witten?
Good evening, Chairman, Mr. Nichols, members of the board. My name is Amy Witten, and I'm the agriculture teacher at Bluestone Middle School. I'm also the mother to 3 boys that have already developed a love for agriculture and are excited about joining the agriculture program when they arrive at the middle schools. E.M. Tiffany wrote the FFA Creed in 1928. I believe that the first paragraph is extremely relevant tonight. I believe in the future of agriculture, with a faith born not of words but of deeds, achievements won by the present and past generations of agriculturists, and the promise of better days through better ways, even as the better things we now enjoy have come to us through the struggles of former years. Bluestone Middle Agriculture has seen its fair share of struggles in the past. There have been a high turnover rate of agriculture teachers and advisors. My 8th graders alone have had 3 different advisors in 3 different years. In the promise of those better days, I hope that the livestock barn that is planned for the new combined middle and high school stays a priority. This year, my classes have scrubbed, cleaned, organized, built birdhouses, designed gardens, and read to elementary school students. These students have worked harder than I could have ever imagined the middle schoolers ever could. My FFA chapter has grown tremendously, and in the past 9 months, the students have become to compete in several different competitions. The Virginia FFA Junior Forestry Competition, where the students placed 5th in the state in the middle school division. On June 11th, 11 students will be going to compete at the FFA State Convention in Agriculture Mechanics, Small Animal Care, and the Food and Fiber categories. For my agriculture students and FFA members, this is where they fit in. They are not the straight A, perfect attendance, athletic group of kids. For many of my FFA members, this is the only intercurricular that they participate in, and it's their passion. Our FFA chapter also had its first ever banquet and plant sale this school year. If you follow our Facebook page, you've seen all the amazing things these kids have accomplished. They are given the basic tools, and when they had them, they succeeded. I plan on being a part of the planning process for the new school. I'm investing in this community, first as a parent and then as a teacher. I want our students to have the same opportunities as students in other counties. Randolph-Henry is a prime example of an excellent agriculture program. This livestock barn may sound like just a barn to you. For agriculture students and teachers in Mecklenburg County, this is what the future of agriculture should look like. Hands-on learning is extremely important. Lessons taught in a classroom can then be applied to real-life situations. Many of my students plan on returning to their family farms, and many of them want to start their own once they graduate. I know that my fondest memories of high school and college were made in a barn and a greenhouse. I hope that you allow the same opportunity for our future students and children by supporting the funding for the barn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Walker?
Good evening, Board. I'm Ellen Walker, and I'm from Boydton, Virginia. I was very disheartened by the reporting in the Mecklenburg Sun of the March school board meeting. It took me back to when I was 11 years old, and I am now 66. The Vice Chair, Wanda Bailey, asked Nichols to consider establishing an honor code for students. Future employees want to know their employees won't steal them blind, she said. And Nichols assured her he was considering mandating an honor code, especially for students who may participate in job shadowing or mentoring programs. Is that profiling? Are you going to change the honor code for everybody? That's my question. Stealing someone blind? Really? I mean, if you're going to put a stumbling block in front of somebody, be careful you don't fall over it yourself. I find that very disheartening. I find it very discouraging. If I had looked at this and if I was a student here going into one of these career programs, I don't think I would have gone. If I'm a business person and I've got somebody coming in from Mecklenburg County, am I supposed to think that they're going to steal me blind? I find that awful. I really do. It's taken me this long to just calm down to get to this point. I really find, I don't care what you think about the kids when you're at home or in your own home, but when you're on the board, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. Are you telling me that every kid who's going to take that career program is going to steal? Is that what you're telling me? You need a whole new honor? You have an honor system here in the school. Are you telling me you need a whole new honor just for them? You got to set them aside and they have a whole different outlook? That's just disrespectful to me. I've already been through this. I mean, if you've ever been profiled, you don't want this. And maybe that's why we're having some of the problems we're having in the school because there are people who want to profile people. But if you want to be a profiler, you need to be at the FBI or CIA or Homeland Security. Take a class, behavior science, whatever it is. But I find this very offensive. And I find it offensive. I'm a taxpayer. Both of my grandchildren have graduated from Mecklenburg County schools. I find this very offensive. And if I was, and I don't know how you intend to get somebody in a mentoring position or in a business, and you've already decided they're going to steal somebody blind.
Ms. Walker, I'll go ahead and finish, but I would like to respond about one of your comments.
Okay, it's taken me 2 months to just get to this point that I can discuss it without just feeling overwhelmed. You've got to give, I understand, don't get me wrong, I know, because I was a nurse. I've got pens on my desk that belong to other people. I understand that. I know about people going in the stores and eating a half a pound of grapes and then taking the bag and paying for it, and understand that. I don't understand this with the children. I don't understand not giving them a chance. I guess I just don't understand that.
There was never any intention that any students be held in a different position than anybody else. The expectation of, the expectations would be there as written in the student code of conduct for all students. And what we were discussing that night in your absence was simply that as we are looking at increasing expectations of things like accountability, attendance, dress code, and whatnot for business, that we would be looking to see that those students that would be moving into those opportunities for job shadowing activities and so forth were those who had been following many of those, the codes without disruption. But it's the same code throughout for all students.
Okay, it's just hurtful. It's just, these kids some of these kids need is just a chance.
And we certainly are looking to provide
And
the
just-
equal opportunity to all students.
So I thank you.
That's everyone.
That's everyone? Okay, now we're to the action items of our meeting. In regards to the minutes from the regular meeting this past April, can I have a motion that the board approves the minutes from the April 16th, 2018 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Garner, seconded by Mr. Honeycutt. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell? Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. With regard to the bills, may I have a motion that the school board approves the payment of the bills?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Finance Committee recommends that we pay the bills as they were presented.
All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes, with exception.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. In regards to the personnel agenda, may I have a motion that the school board approves the amended personnel recommendations?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt, seconded by Mr. Campbell. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. In regards to the policy update, may I have a motion that the school board approves the policy updates?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt, seconded by Mr. Palmer. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. In regards to the technology surplus Mr. Dalton brought before us tonight, may I have a motion that the school board deem those technology items surplus.
So moved.
Who was that made the motion?
Mr. Palmer.
I have a motion from Mr. Palmer, seconded by Mr. Johnson. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. In regards to the Bluestone High School Beta overnight field trip, may I have a motion that the school board approves the Bluestone High School Beta overnight field trip to the National Convention in Savannah, Georgia, June 16th through the 20th, 2018?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Honeycutt, seconded by Ms. Garner. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. In regards to the Parkview High School Band overnight field trip, may I have a motion that the school board approves the Parkview Senior High School Band overnight field trip to Orlando, Florida,
So-
March 14th through 18th,
So-
2000, this says 2019.
It
Yeah, that's
it
right.
does. It would be next year.
Okay, excuse me, next year's, all right. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Garner, seconded by Mr. Honeycutt. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. All right. These are these student matters?
Yes.
Correct? Middle
Yes.
School?
There's
Yeah.
only
There should
one.
only be one.
No, it's two.
It's two. We didn't discuss one.
All right. Does the school board, this is in regards to student matter SD 2017, 2018, 15. The school board supports the discipline committee's recommendation regarding SD 2017, 2018-15 to place a middle school student on home-based instruction for the remainder of the school year.
That's the one we discussed.
Okay, so I should say, let me say that, do I have a motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation on matter 2017, 2018-15?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Garner, seconded by Ms. Bailey. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Palmer?
Yes.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Yes.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes.
Mrs. Garner?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes. In student matter, SM 2017, 2018-16.
We didn't discuss that one.
All
We
right.
didn't get to it.
That was the family emergency.
No.
No, this is
something else.
an out-of-state, an out-of-county school.
Okay.
So are we
We don't vote on whether.
postpone that till next meeting?
Oh.
All right, the reminders, did you have something else?
Paula, are we missing something on this one?
It's fine.
Okay.
All right. Reminders, May 22nd and 23rd, professional development. May 28th, Memorial Day. Board member remarks. Let's see, Mr. Palmer.
Okay, I'd just like to emphasize that I attended both graduation this year and was very pleased with the outcome and the way it was handled.
Mr. Campbell?
I hate Miss Winton left. I hope she doesn't think there's nobody on this board fighting for the barn, because that's me. Glad everybody was safe this year. Hope next year will be even safer. If you have any safety school concerns, please don't hesitate to call me, and have a good summer.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Hats off to all of our administrators, our staff, for an exceptional year. We've got a lot to be proud of here in Mecklenburg County. I want specifically, the people to know, especially my constituents I will speak for, District 5, that I am not going to settle for second best for my Board of Supervisors as far as our new schools are concerned. We were given a budget. It's not going to cut it. We need a little bit more money. And it is no reason why our children in Mecklenburg County cannot compete with the children in Fairfax, Williamsburg, Chesterfield. I'm going to fight for our children with these secondary schools. We haven't done this in 50 or 60 years. And to just settle is it's the word settle's not in my vocabulary. So we're not going to settle for second best in Mecklenburg County. Our children deserve the best. The issues that the people came forward, again, I'm with Ms. Whitten, you know, Mecklenburg County is known for agriculture. We need that part of it here in our county. The other issue, I don't know, you know, just don't know what to say exactly about that, but I just, you know, appreciate all of our staff and what our staff does. I took this position to, you know, I believe all of us should be treated equal, treated fairly. And when that doesn't happen and somebody brings that to my attention, that's very bothersome to me. And hopefully I'll be able to divulge in that just a little bit more. But again, appreciate what everybody has done, and have a great summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Garner?
Oh, I was invited to the FFA banquets on both ends of the county, and I attended both. It was very nice, and as Ms. Whitten says, the accomplishments of the kids were fantastic, especially hers being middle school kids. Also, I had the opportunity to go to the band concert at Parkview and enjoyed every bit of it. I missed Bluestones because of an event I had to go to. I recognize that the teachers, the faculty, the cafeteria workers, the custodians, the bus drivers, central office have all worked hard this year to make this year a success. And I think we did have a lot of accomplishments. And we got a lot more to go. And we're all behind you. Have a great summer.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
First of all, I'd like to say I hope all the teachers enjoy their summers. And summer, I know that's something I have to work a few weeks. But I had to laugh the other day, it was the last day of school. Watched Ms. Dalton. She's a real mother hen over those kids at Clarksville Elementary. She makes sure those kids on the bus, out of the hallway, I mean, it just amazes me. But when it was all the kids on the bus, it was time to leave, boy, she wound it up. She did like that. And I was thinking to myself, she's getting a load off of her for a few months. But I appreciate those teachers, and I told them that day, I said, all y'all come back next year. Don't want nobody retiring, don't want nobody quitting, don't want nobody resigning. We've got some positions that we've got to fill, but I just want y'all to enjoy your summer and come on back next fall.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also attended, Mr. Palmer and I ride shared to both graduations, and it was, it's always such a great day, and the children are so excited, and none of them really cry, you know, that graduation has come. They're all so happy, and we was glad to share that with you, Mr. Palmer. And Ms. Walker, I apologize if I have said anything that hurt your feelings or made you think that I don't care about the children in this county. They are my passion, everybody's children, not just mine. And I'm sorry that you weren't here that night to hear the entire discussion that took place. And unfortunately, the newspaper only has a certain amount of space to report what happens here. But I think it's important that we have high expectations for all of our children, and that we teach them what we can while we can during the school day. And as we have opportunities to encourage them to tell the truth always, to treat others with respect always, and to treat the school building that they're in, the furnishings. I just think that these are just basic things that while the children are with us, that we have a responsibility to show them the right way to do things. And maybe my choice of words was so inadequate, and I truly apologize if you were hurt by that. The intention of my comments were that there are institutions of higher learning that ask their students to sign codes of conduct and honor codes, and I've been on some of those college campuses where I actually left my cell phone once on a picnic table under a shelter on a college campus, and I realized I had done it about an hour later. And when I went back, that phone was still laying there. And I think it was because they had created that kind of culture on that campus. And I'd like for us to have that same culture in our school buildings and in our communities and in our homes. I'll be the first to tell you that my children, if they see something laying on the counter in my kitchen, and it might have George Washington's picture on it, and they might claim it for themselves, even though they know it's not theirs. So I'm not speaking against any one particular child. I think we're all human, and we all fall short many times. And it's my intention to just try to bring people along and just try to teach them the best way to treat other people. But I thank you for coming tonight, and I will be more careful in the future with the phrases and the words that I use. I'm not picking on any particular group or any particular course of study or anything like that, and I truly apologize to you for that. I thank all of the teachers. You've just done an amazing job. Principals, now your work begins. I wish y'all had time off too, but you don't. You got to keep working and keep plugging along. We thank you for all that you do. I thank my fellow board members for working so hard and doing what you do. And we're going to get a great school, and we're going to get what we need to meet the children's needs. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and I just want to thank the principals and all their staff at the two high schools for their graduation ceremonies that I thought went very well. I've been to some unruly ones before, so I always enjoy these. The students behaved very well. They were excited, and it was exciting for me to see them. And I really enjoyed both of those events, and I think that the principals did a fine job on those. And I wish everybody to have a great summer, and that's it for me. Do I have a motion to adjourn our meeting? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.